Hello again, and welcome to Cosmic Soul Alignment, the show that explores the mysteries beyond the physical world, the unseen forces that shape our lives, our healing, and our evolution. And here we dive into the realms that can't always be measured or explained, but can absolutely be felt. The energy, the intuition, and consciousness that connects us all. So each week we have guests who have crossed thresholds, lived extraordinary experiences, and discovered truths that challenge the limits of what we think is real. We explore how to align our soul with the cosmic wisdom that's always been within us. So today's show is sponsored by Stephanie McAuliffe, an amazing woman who helps self-aware leaders protect their energy, stand in their truth, and heal what lies beneath their stories. And we'll be discussing how we've normalized small traumas, the energetic bubbles that we carry, and the power of boundaries to transform our lives. So get ready for a conversation that's both grounded and expansive, one that invites you to see yourself, your patterns, and your healing in a whole new way. So welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you today, Dawn.
Thank you. Now, before we begin, you have very kindly given me an offer for the viewers for your ebook. Now, this is completely free. So tell us a little bit about the book and how it can help people to free themselves.
The Impact of Silence. So this is the paperback copy of it. Reclaim the Sovereignty of Your Soul. This is a book about how we've been systemically silenced. We continue to silence ourselves and to come back to the power of your voice. There's an invitation in each chapter to take the reader deep into their own journey. Excuse me. It includes science and the mystical and the practical and the metaphysical, and it is a gift of love for healing for all of us.
Sounds amazing. And when you sent me the information, I downloaded it, and I haven't been able to start it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to reading it. So the information and the URL will be below this video in the description if you've not got your phone handy. So, okay, Stephanie, your story took you from 27 years on Wall Street to helping people reclaim their energy. Now, that is quite the pivot. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to this stage in your life.
When I was in high school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Because of trauma, dreaming did not feel safe. And so a lot of what I did in the world was based on what the people around me told me I was supposed to do, what I thought I was supposed to do. And my father took me to a management consultant, and I did a battery of tests, and the reports came out in the green bar paper. And the two big things that came through were computers or art. Now, I love art. It was a way for me to be able to express myself when I felt like I didn't have a voice. And I didn't want to be a starving artist.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be a starving artist, so I went into computers. And I started out as a COBOL programmer and worked in very large financial firms and commodities exchanges and insurance companies, and up through project and program management. The beautiful thing about that is it gave me something to focus on until I was ready to focus on and heal the traumas I had experienced. Because traumas began for me really in the womb. I was conceived, as I say, in the back of a station wagon in a grapefruit grove during spring break over a 6-pack of beer. My mother quit college and got married, and my parents had me, thankfully. And there was a lot of trauma. There was mental illness. There was emotional neglect. There was psychological trauma. Physical sexual trauma started when I was very, very young, including the age of 6, 4 years of it that began at the age of 8. There were a lot of things that I experienced that no person ever should, and yet many people do.
Yeah.
So when Wall Street ended, a year after the end of my marriage, and all of a sudden I was sitting on my couch saying, what do I want to be when I grow up? I went deeper into energy healing, which is something that I was doing when I was very, very young, yet through trauma lost the connection to that. And so really, Wall Street was a foil and a container for me to focus on the things I needed to do that I thought I was supposed to do until I was ready to step back into what I'm doing now.
Interesting. That is some story. Yeah. And talking of stories, you say there's no story that can't be healed. So was there a moment in your own story then that you doubted that? And what helped you to believe it again?
For many years, I thought I was a victim of circumstance, of growing up around multiple generations of sexual abuse and not being protected, and functional alcoholism and mental illness and anger and many, many layers. And when my second husband was in the throes of his alcoholism, I went deep into Al-Anon, which is for families of alcoholics. Now, I had been in Al-Anon before. I had been to therapy. We got divorced. It really began me feeling safe to explore, like, what are some of these deeper layers to this? In New Jersey, where I was living at the time, they have something called JalCon, which is a 1 day of meetings between AA and Al-Anon, which I went to. And I went to an AA meeting because I had never been to one. And a man sat in the room and told the story of how his father had forced him to do heroin together when this man was a teenager, which is a horrible story. I led the next meeting for adult children of alcoholics, and he came in and told the exact same story. And when we were done with the meeting, it was like a light bulb went off of, I saw how stuck people were in their stories. And I didn't want to be that way. It was like Al-Anon had given me a box to sit in where I felt safe to explore and create the labels and go into the deeper layers. But I was done telling the story of, I'm a victim of this. This was my experience. I was going to have to live with the energies of it for the rest of my life. And that was when I really stepped more deeply into energy healing. Because I didn't want to be in that space. That had been like a safe nest for me, but it was time to leave the nest and fly out into what became parts unknown.
Yeah. About when you were a child and all this was happening, all this was going on, was there somebody that you turned to, somebody that you could talk to about what was going on and get some help?
Not really. And there were, so my parents divorced when I was 5. My mother remarried. We moved. All of a sudden, I was in a house with 3 older stepbrothers, 2 younger brothers, stacks of Playboy and Penthouse magazines in the basement, and my mother in a new marriage, which a man that she loved. Not long after we moved there, my stepbrother started to sexually abuse me. And it came to a point where I finally said something to a neighborhood friend, and there was a big drama of, don't go near him. And yet we were still living in the same house, and it stopped for about 2 weeks and then continued. So the adults and my stepbrothers knew what was happening. So there was no one in my home to talk to about it. Thankfully, for 2 summers, I went to Connecticut to live with my grandmother. Everybody knew what was happening, and yet there wasn't a willingness to create a more permanent separation between me and my stepbrother. So no, it was, everything became internalized. I remember the first time it was discovered after it had been happening for 2 years, and then it started back up again. All of a sudden I had chronic sore throats. I had a lot of stomach issues. My digestion was all kerfuffled. And I just remember getting course upon course of at the time it was penicillin, now it would be antibiotics, to try to take care of my sore throats. And yet a pill will never heal the energy that we've internalized.
No, absolutely. So why is it then, why do you think that, victims of this type of abuse they're not heard, they're not seen, they're not defended?
I think part of it is the people raising us, it may have happened to them. They may not have felt defended. They may still be dealing with their own wounds. And to take care of the people in our care, it's bringing up their own things that they have not healed. And sometimes it also means sacrifice. Would my mother have had to get divorced in order to protect me? And some people are not willing to give up what they've finally gotten for themselves in order to protect the people that are around them. I think we also come from generations where there was a lot of children should be seen and not heard. Children were created in order to continue the family line. And yet children didn't have a lot of agency. So it was one of, you just sucked it up. You swallowed the bubbles of energy. You pretended that things were okay. And yet I know there were a lot of parts of me that disassociated and splintered off. And I think that's why so many people now walk around not feeling connected with themselves, because through trauma, we disassociate and we splinter as a form of protecting our soul.
It's a form of denial as well, isn't it? And we're going to talk about that in a bit. I've got one more question for you about your story, because I've heard you talking about, the wisdom that comes from our scars. So can you expand a little on that for us and maybe share a scar that became, your greatest teacher, maybe?
So the scar I'm going to talk about is my 17-inch scar from my mastectomy, which was 3 years ago today. There's so much healing that can happen when we actually look at our stories. I am doing this work now because I was willing to not be defined by all of the labels that I carried. So when we speak from the wisdom of our scars, we're no longer in victim mode, where I can speak about things from a place of neutrality, and I'm not giving away my energy and my power to a person, to a situation, to a thing anymore. I'm standing grounded in myself, and there's nothing comparable to being in this energy. So it's not easy to go through the healing process, because we do need to look at also that we are the common denominator. And there are things that I know I did, I'm not necessarily proud of. I also know that I was reacting out of the pain that I didn't know how to process at the time. Through the healing journey, the exact right teachers appeared for me so that I can now sit in this place that is amazing.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about some of the scars I've gone through. I think there's probably many of them, and obviously not for today, but I totally understand what you're talking about. You're like emotional side of things, not just the physical, but it affects us emotionally as well. And I think half the time we just want to, we almost, take action to be in denial of something that we don't want to admit is happening to us.
We do. We're actually taught, and that's part of the impact of silence. We are taught to bypass our emotions. It's not that big a deal. And some of it is generational. For people who grew up or were raised around the Depression and then McCarthyism and World War II, I'm kind of going out of order. Each generation has seen its own way of silencing their emotions to make it through life and to survive. And I think we're especially being called now in this time to heal these things so we can co-create a different world, a world that we want to see rather than a world that we've been surviving in. So yes, there are a lot of emotional wounds and scars in addition to the ones that we can see, that we have the free will to be able to heal them now and to create something pretty magical for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of, the traits and the vibrations that we have right now don't belong to us. We've
Absolutely.
inherited the whole ancestral side. And I often mention it, did you realize that by the time you go back to your ninth set of great grandparents, you have all the traits and the vibrations of over 2,000 lifetimes? That just blows your mind. 2000, I think it's about 2023, I think. It was
Oh my goodness.
just going back 9 sets of great grandparents. Amazing.
I know the Native Americans say that when you heal, you're actually healing 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Because when we heal, we're also clearing the space, first of all, for the generations that have passed, for them to be clear in their next iteration here on this earth. And we're also clearing the energies for those who are to come before us or who are already in our purview. So it really is, I talk a lot about our spider web of energies, and it really is a spider web. I hadn't heard the 2023. That's actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, healing yourself is the first step, isn't it? Because when you heal yourself, you heal others. You have a ripple effect on everyone else, aka the collective consciousness. So everything is a positive influence on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, because it emanates out from us. Sometimes we don't have to say or do anything differently other than be.
Yes, that is a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what you call small t trauma. So can you explain what that means and why you say it's often dismissed or normalized?
So the big T traumas are the car accidents, the divorces. There's actually something called the adverse childhood experiences, and there are quizzes online. It was a study done by the CDC in Kaiser Permanente back in the mid-90s, and they interviewed 17,000 HMO clients. And so they looked more at the big T traumas of mental illness, physical illness, divorce, somebody being incarcerated, death. So there are 10 of them, and it's widely available if someone wants to search online. I have 7 of them. But they looked at the health impacts to these people as adults, because there are the smaller T traumas that are associated with them. When someone is divorced, for instance, when my father remarried, his wife was like an earth angel to me. When they divorced, there was no discussion. It was like I experienced a death of someone who had been really significant to me in a time that was very hard. I had no more contact with her. There was no discussion because my mother didn't care about her ex-husband's ex-wife, and my father didn't want to talk about his ex-wife. So that's an example of a small T trauma. Or another small T trauma is the fact that I lived in a household under a roof where people knew I was being sexually abused. and there was no support. There was no talk about it. There was no protection. So small T traumas are like these bubbles that we swallow because these energies have nowhere to go. And we internalize these hurts and these things that we can't give a voice to. And it compounds. So the big T traumas are the things that we see that we can deal with. If someone has a broken leg, we can take them to the doctor. We can get a cast. They can get crutches. But the small T traumas are these things that a lot of people don't know how to deal with because they don't have the tools. So it's easier to just say, suck it up. You're going to be okay. There's nothing here to do. And it can really create a feeling of our own powerlessness and our own question, like our worth. Like, why am I not worth fighting for?
Because it's something that they can't see necessarily. It's something that's internal to you. And they can't see it, and they've not had that kind of experience, so there's no understanding there either. So I can understand it must be really hard to gain that understanding of what the person's going through. Yeah, we need to do more about that, don't we? To try and help.
Yeah, we do.
These
And
internal, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where we can get curious. Because we may not understand what someone has experienced, we can still be a shoulder for them to lean on, an ear for them to speak to. Sometimes we don't have to do anything at all other than listen. Because when we as children are taught to shut down our feelings, it can be a real challenge to connect with, how do I really feel about this when something happens as an adult?
Yeah, when you're told not to feel, just do as you're told.
Exactly. And I think this is why it's a challenge, not just for women, men as well. And I love seeing the men's movement. There's a lot of healing available that women go to. There haven't been a lot of groups for men. And yet women of a certain age are saying, I'm not going to go back into an old dynamic of a relationship where I am holding the emotional weight for my partner. Men are stepping into this work as well to realize that they too have experienced a lot of these small T traumas that they weren't given a voice. In some ways, don't be a pussy, man up. Boys don't play with dolls.
Stop being a big girl.
Right? There's a lot of messages that have been out there for all of us.
Yeah, don't talk about that. Don't cry in public. That's weak. Yeah, so not weak.
It's not, and we're finding strength in it. I'm also empowered by what I'm seeing on certain social media of people calling out people who are saying and doing really negative things. It's like social media has empowered us to project our wounds onto other people. And there are now people who are saying, no, this isn't right, and calling people out for really bad behavior. In a sense, we're calling out the bullies. And if you think of it, bullies have their own unhealed traumas.
Oh, so much, yeah.
And so we as adults are able to call out the adult bullies because collectively, there are many of us who are breaking the ties of the spider web and breaking the cycle and saying, no, this old behavior that we grew up with is no longer tolerable. And this is where we can all look at our healing. It's very interesting, though. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had a vision of a bridge, and the middle of the bridge fell into the river that it was over. And only about 20% of the people came onto the side of the bridge that I was on. There are a lot of people who don't want to heal, who don't want to to let go of their story, who don't want to step out of the box that they've been in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big part of that 70 to 80% that is on that backside of the bridge. Healing is available for all of us.
Yeah.
And we have the free will to choose whether or not we want to speak from our scar, from our wounds,
Mm-hmm.
or heal and speak from the wisdom of our scars.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem is that these people, these 70 or 80% that you were talking about, they don't realise that they can change things. They don't realise that what they're stuck in can actually change, and it's down to them. They are just not aware. So part of what I like to do is help people to become aware, to understand that they may have had a really bad story. They've been suffering for most of their lives, but they have free will and they have choice and they have the ability to change it. They just need to ask how.
They do. And this too is, I love that you do this work. And this too is a big part of my work, because when we have awareness, we then have the choice of whether or not we want to shift something. Now, there may be a point where we say, I'm not ready to yet. And yet is the operative word. I remember when, right after 9/11, and I was working in Jersey City, right across from the World Trade Center, and watched the whole thing firsthand. And I was dealing with my first husband's alcoholism, because I married two alcoholics. So I followed the family tree, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to my therapist, I am not ready to deal with his alcoholism yet. And so it was there. And I made the conscious choice of I needed to do some of my own internal work first. So yet can be a very powerful word, because we have the awareness. We know it's there. And Spirit of the universe will bring it to us when we are ready to work through it. So we don't have to push. We don't have to come into our own life with our own universal 2x4. Spirit will do that for us when we're ready.
But you're also, by saying the word yet, is almost an acknowledgement of, okay, there's been a seed planted. I don't know that I want to understand it right now, but it's still there and I can go back and get it whenever I like. And then it just starts to grow and grow and grow until all of a sudden you think, okay, now I'm ready. I want to do this.
Yes. And we get to look at what kind of seed are we planting, because we're not planting weeds. We're actually planting, is this a peony? Is it an elm tree? Is it a willow tree? Is it, a rose bush? It's like, what kind of seed do you want to plant? And it may be healing comes when you pick the first peony, or whatever analogy that you want to use, when the leaves start to fall from the tree, of which fall is a time of clearing. And we are in Scorpio season, so it's time to go deep in the energies of this. And this is what my book, The Impact of Silence, is as well. It is an invitation, and it can give you awareness of the things that you haven't seen yet. And then you get to choose, which part do I want to dive into? Another thing that I wanted to point out about the book as well is each section is like an oracle. So you can say, I want to go to page 92. And in the ebook version, even go to whatever section it is. And that is the section you were meant to read today.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break, but I want you to hang on. And Stephanie actually has a fun fact, and we're going to talk about that when we get back. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cosmic Soul Alignment, and I'm here this week with Stephanie McAuliffe. Now, Stephanie gave me a fun fact, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. She says that spirit speaks to her through song. So please tell us about that, Stephanie.
I will have a song playing through my head, and this is where I get curious of where it comes from and the message that comes with it. So this morning I've had No Doubt's I'm Just a Girl playing through my head, and I've been working on some family energies and old contracts and paradigms around money and wealth. And part of the message of this song is why don't you just let me be? And there was something else that came to me this morning too when I was thinking about it. And then for a couple of days, I had Matchbox 20's song Push playing through my head. And it's also a song really about freedom. Mm-hmm. So this is where I get to get curious of spirit gives me messages in many, many ways. Mm-hmm. I will see symbols. My dreams can be very prophetic. I work with multiple forms of divination cards. I have my pendulum right here that I work with. But song is one of those things where I love music. I love live music. And it is another way for spirit to get me to pay attention in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how they communicate with us in the strangest of senses there. And mm-hmm. I had to laugh inside there when you were talking about your dreams. Mine have been off the charts lately, absolutely crazy. And I think if anybody was to spend 30 seconds in my dream space, it would freak them the hell out. It really would. Some of the things that are coming.
Why is that?
Yeah. Coming through, just so muddled. But when you sit back and you think about it, it actually makes sense about a message they're trying to get to you at the time to help you through a specific situation. So I have really learned to sit up and take notice about my dreams, as much as I can remember of them. But yeah. Through songs, and that's made me think, actually, because quite often I have songs in my head for days and I just try and shut it out because it's annoying and I don't want to hear that anymore. It's distracting and I want to do something. I need to pay more attention because I did that not that long ago. And like you said, it's very symbolic. I think it gives you little words and little phrases. So when I go and look at the lyrics, it makes sense about what I was going through in that day. So yeah, they communicate in very strange ways. We just need to be open to receiving it.
And with your dreams, do you journal on them as well?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And much more so lately. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I find that it's not necessarily the initial message that we see is when we go a little bit deeper with the lyrics of the song or the meaning of the dream. It's like, oh, that's what that means. So, like I said, spirit is a lot like Scorpio. It's like, let's go into the waters. Let's go into the deeper aspect of this to see what's really underneath the surface.
Yeah, none of this dipping your toe in malarkey. Let's get in there.
Right. Just dive in, and it's fascinating when we actually give ourselves the space and time to go a little bit deeper, because there's so much healing that can happen.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And to let it flow, just to let it happen instead of just ignoring it. Just accept that it's there and it's going to come up one way or the other. And you can either make it easy for yourself or you can make it really hard. The choice is yours.
And I find that, just like you said, you'd have a song playing in your head for a couple of days and you just wanted to push it away. That's the same thing that we've been taught with our emotions, to swipe left on them, to not pay attention. And we think that when we have separation, that we're no longer there. It's like, when we leave a job or we leave a relationship or we're no longer living in a certain place, that separation, we just don't have to deal with it anymore. And yet there are still energetic connections there for us. Like, why do we continue to have the same type of partner or the same type of job or the same type of friendships? It's like these songs replay. These are our patterns. And when we pay attention and give ourselves the time, instead of trying to swipe left, and we know the energy doesn't go away, we can transform it. But if we're not willing to look a little bit deeper, eventually the universe will come through with a 2x4 to get us to pay attention.
Yeah, and that was actually leading right into my next question, which was about, your statement, the bubbles of energy that we swallow, and that's quite a powerful image when you think about that. So talk to us a little bit more about when we swallow these bubbles, what happens?
So
we decide to release them.
Yeah. So if you think of, if you're one of those soap thingies and you're blowing air into the soap and it creates the bubble. And when you're outside, it will float for a while and eventually it will pop, and the energy, the air that created it, as well as the soap, will dissipate. And when we're in a healthy situation, we're able to speak about what it is that we're experiencing. And it's like these bubbles. When we don't feel like we have a voice, when we're not able to express what it is that we're feeling or thinking or experiencing, it's as if we are breathing in and we are creating that bubble. And eventually that bubble pops and all of that energy sticks to our cells. There's a lot of science out there, both more modern and centuries old, that show the emotional connection between our meridians and our organs and where different energies are stored within the body. I mean, there's something to having bladder issues and being literally pissed off. There's a little anger.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot that is there that when we make the connection to, and I even think of all of the sore throats I had in 4th and 5th grade. All of those bubbles that I had to swallow. I wasn't protected. I had been threatened with my life if I told anyone what was happening. I was silenced.
Yeah.
And so that energy, those thoughts, those feelings had nowhere to go but within. So those are the bubbles that we swallow. I think that's exactly why we have so much disease now. And what that ACEs study did is they looked at, if you had 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, you were more likely to have high blood pressure, heart disease, go into substance abuse yourself, be partnered with unhealthy people, and potentially even early death. So there is a direct connection to the bubbles that we swallow and the diseases and the illnesses we experience as adults.
So have you found that these bubbles of energy then they influence the choices that you make or the people that you attract into your life?
Absolutely. And I look at, so when I was experiencing breast cancer a number of years ago, there was a time where there was a tarot card that I was pulling in a deck that I work with, and it's the 8 of Swords, but it showed the octopus, and each of its tentacles were wrapped around a different sword that was, stuck in the sand down at the bottom of the ocean. And I connected my breast, I don't want to say my breast cancer because I didn't own it, the cancer in my body, with 8 different things that I had experienced and swords I was holding on to, including the sexual abuse and the energies on Wall Street. And I won't go into all 8 of them. When we get curious, we can see that the connections with our experiences, and how they manifest in our body.
Okay. Very deep, Stephanie, very deep.
Yeah, it is. And this is where we get to be our own personal archaeologist and look at, so I'm still on medication for high blood pressure. I may be for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. And yet high blood pressure a lot of times is connected with fight, flight, and freeze. And the things that we experience, the terror, the small t traumas that we weren't able to give a voice to, manifest in our body just being on heightened alert all the time. Yeah. And that is high blood pressure.
Stress. Too high cortisol levels. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit earlier about, people having their own unresolved issues. So triggers really are unresolved issues, waiting to be healed. Can you give us a real life example of how one of your own triggers, became a gift to you?
There's so many of them. It's any time. So I'll use, for instance, my mother passed away a few months ago. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. And there are one of my family members, we've been like oil and water. And we used to trigger each other all the time. There was a lot of childhood competition between us. And I was very jealous of the fact that he got a lot of attention when I didn't, because he had a problem with something was happening with his ankle and he needed to go into the hospital. And yet here I had these things happening and all of the attention was on his big T trauma versus my small T trauma. And there was an effort to keep me away from her in her final 2 months of life. And yet Spirit, in her way, I was able to talk with her while she was in the hospital, because I had come to the point of, I was at peace with what had happened between us. So I held no more ill will. My final words to her were, I love you and I'm thinking of you. I could have really allowed myself to be triggered by what one of my siblings was doing, because of the layers of healing that I have done. I see that he has his own wounds. I wish nothing but the best for him. And I still want nothing to do with him. So I hope that answered your question. It was kind of a roundabout.
Yes. It's about forgiveness as well, though, isn't it, Stephanie? You've got to be able to talk about something that has upset you, that's traumatized you in your past with a person, and actually not let yourself get affected by that. It's to release it enough so that you can leave it in your past and you can move forward. Forgive that person, forgive yourself, and move on.
And not to say that there weren't some smaller triggers during this process. And when I am triggered with something, I see it as a catalyst for something to heal. So this journey of her final 2 months of life with family allowed me to heal some of those like really fine spider webs. So it was a gift for me to be in this space now of, you know what, I wish you well.
But you saw it as an opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
You've now flipped your thinking around, and you now see your triggers as opportunities for further healing. Yeah. And I think the quicker we all understand that, the quicker we can all heal.
Yes, because the old me would have lashed out.
Yeah.
And the thing is when, and I see this and I teach this with my clients, is people are invested in us being invested in their story. So they will throw out a line with the bait on it, hoping that we will take the hook and react in the old way that we did. So that justifies to them how they feel. And when we no longer take the bait, first of all, we're not giving away our power in their story.
Mm-hmm.
We're not pulled into their energy. We get to stand as a sovereign being and actually be much more objective and to be as an observer, because we can see what they're doing. And we can also wish them well, to hope that they're not one of those 70 to 80% who choose not to heal, who choose to remain in their wounds as we've moved to the other side of the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been lots of, people in my life as well that I can now look back and say, I know you treated me really badly, but that's okay. That's not me. That's not me anymore. And I have severed that relationship with you. So now I have taken back my power and I've risen my boundary line, and you don't get to do that to me anymore. Because that's where I was being, verbally, psychologically abused. I only managed to get past that because of the sudden realization that I was only being abused because I allowed it. I did not stand up for myself. I had nobody standing up for me, but I did not stand up for myself.
Right.
And as soon as I realized that, that was just a massive turning point in my life.
It is. We are the common denominator.
Yes.
And yes, when we're young, we don't have a choice. We have full choice as adults. And this is why I say energy healing is so important. There are so many people out there that focus on action and mindset. Energy healing, I say, completes the sentence, and that is meant to be a metaphor because it is a way to free us of the sentence sometimes that we either created or we perpetuated, and we just want to get out of, because we're not meant to stay in those boxes and in those old stories. So this is why that day in New Jersey, that GelCon meeting, stepped me further into my own energy healing, because it was like this light bulb moment, just like yours as well, of I don't want to carry this bag of rocks anymore. I don't want to carry the weight. It's time to rise up to a new level and create something new. And I will say that for those of us who experience trauma, big T or little t, and it didn't feel safe to dream, as we clear those old energies, this is where we get to, play with the energy of the universe and co-create. And I'm going to use the word manifest, but manifest in a different way, because it's not just about, I'm going to think about the Jaguar and all of a sudden it's going to be in my driveway. It's like, what am I creating to be able to really create the life that is defined by me, not by the rules and the vestiges that I grew up around.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Leading me into my last question, because we've only got a couple of minutes left. So if someone then is feeling really overwhelmed by, the sheer number of bubbles they've swallowed, where do they start? I mean, where can they find that pin for the bubble?
First of all, it's only focus on one at a time. And you can ask spirit. One of the things I used to do at night is I would clear my energy, and then I would ask spirit for guidance into what is next for me to look at. And a lot of times it would come in a dream, or it might come in a song. And that was the one thing that I focused on, because we did not get here overnight. Healing will not happen overnight. This is where we get to be patient. And this is where we get to say, not yet. Because family can be one of our greatest teachers, and family can be the source of some of our greatest wounds. And sometimes it may mean temporary separation from certain people so that you have the space to actually breathe and get the impact of silence, because there are a lot of invitations in there for you to go deeper into your own story. So it is really one of, instead of trying to push through and say, I want to be healed right away, give yourself space and time to breathe and ask spirit for guidance.
Yeah,
Because
and go
you
easy
will,
on yourself.
exactly, because this is one of forgiving ourselves for sometimes staying in situations that weren't healthy. You weren't ready to leave it yet.
Yep.
So playing with curiosity and the word yet, and allowing yourself to really kind of play with the magic of the universe and co-create. Because one of the things I like to do too is when I am on the other side of this, what do I want to fill that space with? And sometimes it takes dreaming ahead of to understand what it is that we're ready to let go of.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay. We're out of time now, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it. And to the viewers, thank you for joining us on Cosmic Soul Alignment, where we explore the mysteries beyond the veil and the truths that connect us all. So I hope today's conversation inspires you to look a little deeper beyond the physical, beyond the obvious, and remember that there's always more to life than we can see. So until next time, stay curious and stay open and keep aligning with the wisdom of your soul. So take care, and I'll see you next week for another journey beyond the veil. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.